And whenever a KJV-only Baptist doesn't like something that the Bible plainly spells out, there's a wonderful invention that's out there called dispensationalism that you can always run to. Dispensationalism will always help you with the things that are uncomfortable, the things that you just don't like, the things that you just, I don't like that the Bible says that. You know, how can I change that when we're King James only people? Dispensationalism. And unfortunately, it's gotten completely accepted in many Baptist churches. They're accepting this garbage. It's a bunch of garbage. And I'm telling you, these people need to stop calling themselves King James only people. Okay, when you're teaching, when the Bible says Jesus went to hell and you're saying, no, it was actually paradise. Don't call yourself a King James person, all right? Don't do that. Okay, there's a big difference between hell and paradise. Huge difference. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But the arguments against the teaching that Jesus went to hell, it is a great example of the mental acrobats that dispensationalism forces people into. And one of the great dispensationalists of our time, Dr. Peter Ruckman.
Bam!
All right. Brother Mark just gave me this Ruckman Reference Bible. All right. And he was wanting me to get rid of it, but I'm telling you, man, there are some gems in here. Let me tell you, there are some gems in here. And let me tell you something. These people, okay, the mainstream Baptists, they cannot refute what we teach on end times. And they're scared to even try. And the only people that have the guts to even try to go against what we teach are the Ruckmanites.
I believe that these aliens and these UFOs are nothing more than demonic forces that are plotting to once again come down to this earth and continue the actions that they did before the flood.
They're the only ones that have the guts to do it. And most Baptists are repulsed by what they teach, and you're going to see why here in a little bit, but they're still running to these bozos because they're the only ones that will stand up to us. They're the only ones that will face us on these things. But let me tell you, this guy was their hero. All right? This Ruckman was their hero. I read Acts 2. Y'all saw what it says. Let's read Peter Ruckman's commentary on Acts 2. This is great, folks. I mean, this is great. I've been trying to prove to people these people are nuts. All right, and if this doesn't prove it, I don't know what else does. Listen to this. Although Peter preaches about Christ's death here, his burial, and his resurrection, he never applies those things as blood atonement for sin. This isn't preached until Acts 8:31 and 35 when Philip preached it from Isaiah. Now, why would he say that? Listen, the dispensationalists are always real big on teaching multiple gospels. Okay, this is who the Baptists are running to. These three gospel heretics. All right, now that's a heretic right there. That's what somebody the Bible says, let him be accursed. They're going to these three gospel heretics. They say Jesus preached a different gospel than what Paul preached. Jesus preached the gospel of the kingdom, and Paul preached the gospel of the grace of God. Different gospels. And the gospel that we preached didn't start getting preached until Acts 8. And so you ask these people, well, what is the gospel? It's the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Did you see Jesus, when he was preaching the gospel, mention the death, burial, and resurrection? So it's not the same gospel. And so they do. They make up all these rules to try to box everything in. But then Peter here, right here in Ruckman's own commentary, although Peter mentions the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, it's not the gospel, because blood atonement is not mentioned. It's like if you don't mention every single element of the gospel, it's a different gospel. Sometimes it's just implied by the word gospel. Yeah. And so right there he's saying it's not the gospel, even though the death, burial, just their own rules, they can't even make fit together. They contradict each other. So let's keep reading at what he says. It says, in regard to the expression, the pains of death, okay? The pains, all right, because what are we going to do about that? Because we know Jesus didn't suffer in hell. Because the dispensationalists have these crazy theory I'll share with you in a little bit. What are we going to do about this pains of death thing? Because that's really specific. In regards to the expression, the pains of death, your heart is pained when it is troubled. You can be in pain when near death. Pain includes fear and anguish. Pain is feeling the effects of wounds and bruises. These are the things that attend death. As a man, Jesus had a human body and a human soul and a human spirit. At his death, his spirit went back to the Father. His body went to the grave, the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, and his soul went straight down into the center of the earth through hell here, and came out leading captivity captive. So he's just, it's like, that's where you just don't do any commentary on that part, all right? When you just don't have an explanation, just don't say anything. So he's going into these mental acrobats here. Well, I know it says, Jesus, he just went through hell because he was going to lead captivity captive. And I'm going to show you what captivity captive means. All you got to do is read the Bible a little bit, and you can find out what captivity captive means. But they say that means, he's leading captivity captives, those Old Testament saints that were in the good part of hell, in paradise. Jesus led them out of there up into heaven. Okay? That is ridiculous. Now, first of all, how would you get that from Acts chapter 2? Okay, you wouldn't get that at all. Anybody see Jesus leading anybody there when it says the soul is not left in hell? You don't see that. They get that from Ephesians. We're going to go there in a little bit because I'm going to show you the different arguments. But folks, that is ridiculous what I just read there. That is heresy, what I just read. That is who the Baptists are turning to today, this man's disciples. He was a nut, and his followers are nuts. All right? I'm sorry, nut's not very nice. Fine, heretic. Let's use a biblical word. All right? Let him be accursed.